Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and get started. It's 8 o'clock now. So just want to take a second and just say thank you. We know there's a million other things you could probably be doing here on a Monday night, but we really appreciate you taking the time to get online to learn a little bit more about Homeschool Tracker and how to best use it in your homeschool. So again, my name is Dave, and I am one of the owners and operators of Homeschool Tracker. And it's really our mission to not only create products that help you be more successful in your homeschool, but also to give you the support, the resources, and the training to use those tools effectively, so that you have everything you need to be the most successful that you can be in your homeschool. So that's what tonight's all about. And so we really, again, just really appreciate you joining us. We are recording this webinar, and we will send out a link to this recording to everyone that has registered as soon as that recording is available. And at the end of this webinar, we'll also send you each a survey just to get your thoughts on the training session, and if you have any feedback or ideas for future training sessions. So let's go ahead and dive right in. We're going to talk a little bit tonight about, first of all, where to find help. So I know that Homeschool Tracker is a really feature rich and deep program. And so there's a lot of different features and tools and settings and that sort of thing. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about where to best find help if you're ever looking for that. We're also going to do a quick interface tour. So we're going to run through the menu, and I'll be able to show you where different things are. We're going to talk a lot about the difference between subjects and courses in Homeschool Tracker. And so understanding the difference between those two and how to set them up is really critical for your success. And then we'll spend a lot of time talking about assignments, which are really the heart of all of your record keeping in Homeschool Tracker. From there, we'll move on to lesson plans, which are a really popular feature. And then we'll talk a little bit about reports, and specifically the daily task list, which is a great report that you can generate to show you and your students what they need to do each and every day. And then lastly, we'll discuss workflows. And we'll actually talk about this throughout the training session tonight. And what I mean by workflows is really just how you use these tools day in and day out. So what are some of the best practices? What do most people do? Or what might work for you? And then we'll wrap things up with a Q&A. So any questions that you have, feel free to submit those either along the way or at the end, and we'll be sure to answer each and every one of those questions. Okay, so let's just jump right in. So first things first, where to find help. So um, one thing that I would recommend, well, first of all, you're probably in the best place to find help right now. These training sessions, I think, are probably the best way to learn how to use Homeschool Tracker, and they're also a great reference if you ever want to watch them again. And you can find them right here. If you go to homeschooltracker.com/training-webinars, you can register for any upcoming training events we have. We usually do one of these every other week. And then you can also view all the past training sessions. So we recently did one specifically on lesson planning, which was an in-depth training session just on how to do lesson planning. So that's a great one to check out if you're interested in that. Or you can watch this Getting Started training session again if you like. The other place I'd recommend to get help would be our Getting Started videos. And if you jump over to help.homeschooltracker.com, this is our main help site. And our Getting Started video guide is right here at the top. And it's 11 parts, and each one of these is just a few minutes. Altogether, these 11 parts take about a half an hour to watch. And it's a great way if you just want to jump into a very specific area and get kind of a refresher on that. You certainly can do that right here. Or if you want to watch the whole thing, you certainly can do that as well. And then the last place, or not necessarily the last place, but another great place to find help is right here on this help site. So this is a really comprehensive, I would say, reference guide to Homeschool Tracker. And because of that, probably the best way to access it is from within the application itself. So for example, if you are in Homeschool Tracker, I'll just go to the agenda for a second. And in any page or any screen within Homeschool Tracker, if you ever want to find help regarding that specific page, all you have to do is click on this help link up here in the top right. That will take you directly to the corresponding help page on our help site. So for example, this page here is the help page for the agenda calendar view, and it's really comprehensive. Anything and everything you'd ever want to know about the calendar view is right here, along with links to other areas that it might reference. Another way to use the help site is just to search. So, for example, if I want to search for days off, I can go ahead and type that in and instantly go to the corresponding page on days off within Homeschool Tracker. So this resource certainly is really comprehensive, and it has pretty much all the details you would ever need to learn about a specific page within Homeschool Tracker. And then the last place I would say is email. You can always email us anytime at support@homeschooltracker.com. My wife, Amy, she monitors our email box and is constantly on there responding to emails. You may have already spoken to her via email. We typically respond to each and every email within 1 to 2 business days. And if you've ever emailed us, it's likely that you've received a response even quicker than that. But we absolutely do respond to each and every email. If you don't get a response from us within 1 to 2 business days, there is a chance maybe we didn't get your email. It may have gotten lost in our spam or gotten blocked somehow. So feel free to send your message again because we absolutely do respond to each and every email that we receive. Okay, so let's jump into the interface of Homeschool Tracker. I'm just going to close some of these windows here, and I'm going to go back to our main screen here. Okay, so I want to just take a few minutes here and just talk about the menu here, this main menu, and kind of how it's broken up. So up here in the top left, you have the schedules and planning area. And this is where you'll find the agenda, both in calendar view and list view. This is where you'll find lesson plans, as well as the shared lesson plan library. Below that is the students section. And this is pretty much where anything and everything has to do with your students exists. So this is where your main student list is. This is where you can set the grade levels for your students. You can see a grading overview, which basically lists all of their assignments over a given time period and all of the grades that they've received. This is another place where you can access lesson plans and presets, which we'll go over a little bit later tonight. And the transcript supplemental is here as well. And so this is where you can add things like activities and awards, achievements that will be attached onto your student's transcript. The middle section here is all about reports. And each one of these basically links off to a place where you can generate one of those reports. And the reports can be created as PDF files, which you can save, print, or save, print, or perhaps send via email. And this is where you'll find things like the attendance report or the daily task list, which we'll talk about later. This is where you can create report cards or transcripts. So all of your reports are located right here in the middle of the menu. The top right is what we call the manage lists section of the menu. And it's really more of a maintenance area because essentially what occurs here is each one of these sections, so things like activities, chore names, courses, grading scales, these are all like essentially settings, right? So for example, courses, this is where you'll have a list of all of the courses within your homeschool, but it's not really an area that you're gonna be in and out of a lot. So that's why I kind of call it a maintenance area, but it is important, and it's important to know how it works, and we'll cover that a little bit later too. Below that is the Your Account section. This is where you'll find the program options, where you can turn off and on certain settings, your school profile, where you can set the name of your school, and other settings like that. And then also the subscription and users page, where you can change your subscription, add user accounts, change your email address, or reset your password. Okay, so that's just a quick overview of the menu. Next, we want to talk a little bit about the difference between subjects and courses. So subjects are broad areas of study. These are things like math or language arts, history, or science. Things, kind of those core subjects that you hear about in school. And so they're not too specific. That's where we get courses. So courses are specific areas of study, things like Algebra 2 or Composition 1 or Physical Science 1. And a course essentially belongs to a subject, or it falls underneath a subject. So for example, Algebra 2 might belong to the subject of math. Composition 1 would probably fall under language arts. Physical Science 1 would probably fall under science. So the way it works is your subject is kind of the broad area, math, language arts, history, science. And then the course is the very specific course, or like the class that your student might be taking. And the reason we break this up between subject and courses is really for reporting purposes. So when it comes down to creating a transcript, the transcript might be laid out by subject, where it might have math, and then it would list all of your courses within math and the corresponding grades credit units, GPA, that sort of thing for each one of those courses. So it's important to understand the difference here, because when you're setting up your homeschool and you're adding subjects or adding courses, there will be a reason for it, especially when you're creating reports down the line. So let's do a quick little demo here, just to show you the difference between the two and kind of how it all works. So I'm going to jump back to Homeschool Tracker. And first I'll jump over to the subjects screen, and that's under the Manage Lists section of the menu. And so when I go over to subjects, you'll notice that I only have 4. And you certainly may have more or less. If you have more than, I would say, 10 subjects, you're probably being too specific with with your subjects. You might want to rethink how you're creating them. But generally 4 to 8, I'd say, are about average of where most homeschool tracker users lie. And right here you can see, here's my subject of history. That's the status of core. There's one course within history that exists, and it's currently active. So not really a whole lot to do here, not really a lot of information. If I double click on it, I can change those settings if I like. But again, because subjects are so broad and because they're essentially just a container for courses, there's not really a lot that you need to do in here. If I wanted to create a new subject, I would just click on Action and then Add, and I could go ahead and give it a name and save it, and I would create a new subject. But now let's jump over to courses. So if I go to courses here in the Manage List section of the menu, you'll see, first of all, that I have a lot more courses than I did subjects, but also that there's a lot more information here. And again, that's because the courses are more specific. That's where a lot more details will exist. So let's just take a look at this first one, Ancient History 1. That belongs to the subject of history. It doesn't have any credit units currently, but it shows you all these different details around it. If I double click on it, again, you can see all those details, and I can change those really easily right here. But let's go ahead and create a new course while I'm here. So I'll just click on Action, then choose Add. Give this course a name. I'm going to call it Reading 1. And the subject for Reading 1 would be Language Arts. And I'm going to stop right there for a second, because as you probably noticed, this popped up right here that says Language Arts. And that's because this is what we call a smart entry field. And these actually exist throughout Homeschool Tracker. And basically what they do is, as I'm typing, the entry box here is basically searching the corresponding list for anything that matches what I'm typing. So in this case, it's searching the subject or the subjects list that we just looked at earlier for anything that matches what I'm typing. So you can imagine this being helpful if, for example, you had a long list of items and you wanted to quickly find it. You could just start typing it and it would pop up. So as you can see, if I started typing something else, that would pop up there. One little trick here, if you don't remember the name of your subject or the item you're looking for, you can just enter in a blank space and all of the items will show up. And then you can just choose which one you like. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Language Arts. Now, the rest of these options here, we're not going to dive into those just yet. They're a little bit more advanced potentially, but not too difficult to understand. You can definitely just jump into the help section for this page to learn all about those different options. But things like grading scale, credit units, weighted grading, they all exist right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And then I'm going to refresh this page. And now you'll see that I have a new course called Reading 1 under the subject of Language Arts. And it's all ready to go. Okay, so that's how you would create a course. A few things about subjects and courses to look out for. We would recommend not using the exact same name for both the subject and the course. So for example, you wouldn't necessarily want a course called Language Arts and a subject called Language Arts, because it would be confusing. It would be hard for you to distinguish between the subject and the course. And again, like we said before, you want your course names to be more specific. So if you had a course that was Language Arts, maybe you call it Freshman Language Arts, or maybe you call it Language Arts 1 or 2 or 101 or something like that. Just be more specific with your course names and have the subjects be really broad. The second thing is that a slash like this shows the break between subject and course when you see that throughout the program. So let me just show you what that looks like real quick. I'm just going to jump back to the agenda, and I'm just going to go ahead and add a new assignment really quickly. But as I add a new assignment, you'll notice that this smart entry field says subject slash course. And if I just hit the space bar here to take a look at all of my subjects and courses, you'll see that I have history right here by itself. That's the subject of history. And I can create assignments that only exist in a subject. And that's just one strategy or one way that you can do that. But if you are using subjects and courses, you'll see it broken up like this, where you'll see the subject first, then a slash, and then the name of the course. And so if I click on that, now I'm selecting the course Ancient History 1, which belongs to the subject of history. If I just selected history, then I would be creating this assignment just for the subject of history. So important to notice or to note that that's what that slash represents when you see it throughout the program. And yeah, if you don't see that slash, that means you're just looking at the subject. Okay, so now let's jump into assignments because that's really what we call the heart of all your record keeping in Homeschool Tracker. And so these assignments, these are the schoolwork tasks that we give our students to complete. These are it, when we say assignments, it doesn't mean just homework. It doesn't mean just specific schoolwork assignment. It could be anything that you want to keep track of, really. And so we'll show you how to do that here in a second. So this is kind of what it looks like. So you've got assignments right here in the middle, again, the heart of all your record keeping, and they can come from a couple different places. So you can create assignments individually or in a series, and I'll show you how to do that. Or assignments can come from a lesson plan. Lesson plans are basically a series of items that once they go through a scheduler become assignments. And that'll make more sense when we walk through that here in a few minutes. But because the assignments themselves have all of this information, all of this data that you're tracking over time, you can do a lot with that, right? And so from the assignments that you're creating, and if you do this throughout your school year, day in and day out, you can then generate report cards and transcripts. You can have attendance records created automatically from assignments. You can generate the daily task list to show you and your students what you need to work on, and a number of additional reports. You saw a list of those a little bit earlier in the menu. So again, all that work and all that data that you put into an assignment really pays off down the line because you can then generate all of these really rich reports out of it. So this is what a basic assignment entry form looks like, and we actually just saw that just a few minutes ago. But essentially, there's only three mandatory fields in an assignment. So a student, the subject course, and a date. That's really all you need to enter to create an assignment. Now, obviously, there are all these other fields in there, and the more information you put into the assignment, the more reports you can make, the more things that you can track over time. But really, if you keep it simple and you just put in your student, subject course, and a date, that's enough just to get started. Now, one of the key things about assignments is there's this complete button. And let me just show you that real quick back here on the top. So this complete section, there's a teacher complete, and then there's an optional student complete checkbox. Now the teacher complete checkbox is really powerful because that tells Homeschool Tracker that this assignment was completed. And when an assignment is marked complete by a teacher, a number of things can happen. Attendance can be recorded if you're using auto attendance. Grades will then be generated and go towards an overall course or subject grade. Time spent can be calculated if you're using time spent, and from all of that, all of these different reports can be generated. So it's not just enough to create the assignment by itself, but it's called Homeschool Tracker, right? So we need to track that assignment over time. And so by marking it complete when it's completed by your student, or when you deem it to be complete, that's when it gets really kind of marked in the grade book, so to speak, or marked in the record book, and that's when all those reports can then be generated. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of demo here around assignments. The first thing we'll do is we'll create both single and multiple assignments. We'll add grades to those assignments, and then we'll mark them complete. And we'll do that both from the calendar view and the list view. So let's jump back over here. So first off, we're going to start in the calendar view. So again, from the main menu up here in the top left, the agenda calendar view. And the agenda is really just what it sounds like. It's basically the place where you are going to find a list of all the things on you and your student's agenda for that particular day. So this agenda calendar view is set up like a calendar. It looks like most other calendar programs you might have seen. Up here at the top, you have this add button, and this is where we'll add assignments or other items. You also have these filters here, these blue filters, and if you click on those, you can use them to determine what you actually see on the calendar. So we'll take a look at that a little bit later. And then up here in the top right, this is your navigation, so you can view the calendar um, one day at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time, and then you can navigate left and right, or forward and back, I should say. So let's go ahead and create a single assignment. Just going to go ahead and click on add and choose assignment single. And I'm going to create this for my daughter Campbell. And subject course, I'm just going to hit the space bar to see a list of all of them. I'll choose Ancient History 1. The activity, this is going to be a lesson. And again, you notice this is another smart entry field, so that pops up. Resource, this pulls items from your library that you designate as resources. I'm just going to pick one of these. PLC stands for page, lesson, chapter. And for this one, I'm just going to say chapter 2. Actually, I'll do chapter 1. Custom, that's a custom field that you can use for whatever you like. For the date, I'll make it for today, and I'll do a start time of 10 a.m. and an end time of 11 a.m. And I'll say that this is worth a possible 10 points. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click save. And there we go. So now I have this assignment here on Campbell's agenda, Ancient History 1, and it's a lesson. And so if you click on it once, you'll get a little preview of the assignment itself. It even shows a little thumbnail of the book or the resource that we put in there. And from here, I can quickly mark it complete just by clicking on this, or my student can mark it complete. If I wanted to go ahead and edit it or see more information, I would just click on more here, and it opens this edit window back up. So let's say that I went ahead and I entered that assignment, and now I want to go ahead and grade it. She completed the assignment, so I'm going to add a grade and then mark it complete. So I'll come back in here and I'll open this up, and I'm just going to do it from here. Click on more, and let's say Campbell got a 9 out of 10. And I'm going to go ahead and check the box for teacher complete. You notice as I did that, this grade was calculated for 90%. So now I'm going to go ahead and save it. And so you may have noticed that it kind of dimmed in color a little bit. That's just showing me that that assignment is completed. And you may have also noticed that up here at the top, it says Campbell present. And that is an attendance record that was created for that day because I have auto attendance enabled. And that's a setting in the program options that you can turn on or off. Basically, auto attendance is saying that anytime an assignment is marked complete on a specific day, it's assuming that the student was there that day. So it's going to go ahead and create an attendance record for that person. And that can be helpful, obviously, if you need to create attendance reports, either for your own use or to send to authorities or whatever it might be. Having it automatically created is certainly convenient. Okay, so that's it. We created a single assignment, we graded it, and we marked it complete. And now when we think about workflows, this kind of idea of just creating single assignments, marking them complete, totally works. People do this day in and day out. So we know a number of users that every morning they may go in and create the assignments they need for that day. At the end of the day, they might go in, mark them complete and give them grades, and then do that again the next day. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like that's a perfectly fine way to use Homeschool Tracker. I think one of the things about Homeschool Tracker that many don't understand it, or don't realize, I should say, is that it's really an open program. You can use it however works best for you. So finding one of these workflows or figuring out a way that works best for you and your style is really the best way to use Homeschool Tracker. It's kind of similar to homeschooling itself, right? There's so many different ways to kind of do homeschooling. And so that's why Homeschool Tracker is kind of open in that sense, that it allows you to adapt it to your use. So that's definitely something that a lot of folks do. It also works really well if you're more of an unschooler or you're not much of a planner necessarily. So for example, let's say you don't necessarily know that Campbell's going to do Ancient History 1 on Monday, so why put an assignment on the agenda? Instead, you could just go about your day on Monday, and then at the end of the day, just go back in and create assignments for all the work that you did do. And then Homeschool Tracker really becomes more of a logging tool, becomes a way for you to essentially log all the work you did, still track it, still generate all those report cards and attendance records and all of that. But you don't necessarily need to do the work ahead of time. You can always go back in after the fact and enter in the information that you want to record. So that's how you would create a single assignment. Let's go ahead and create multiple assignments at once. So I'm going to go ahead and click Add and then choose Assignment Multiple. And so when I do that, I'm presented with basically what's a wizard. So you go through these multiple steps here. So these tabs here at the top, you can click on to kind of jump between steps in the wizard. But let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing, I can choose which students I want these assignments to apply to. If you have more than one student, you can check more than one here. Subject course, I'll go ahead and choose Ancient History 1 again. This will be a lesson. I can choose a resource. Start and end time. Let's just do 10 to 11 again. Let's say these will all be worth 10 points as well. And then I'll go ahead and continue to day and date. Now I want to have these start on Tuesday because I already created one for today. And I'm going to choose the option to continue creating items until PLC pattern is exhausted. I'm going to tell you what that means here in a second. I could also continue creating items until an end date in the future, but I'm going to do this PLC pattern instead. Now, PLC, remember, stands for page, lesson, chapter. And I could create these with the same PLC for each copy and then just put in the number of copies I want, or I could have them automatically increment. And so when you think about automatically increment, a page or lesson or chapter likely isn't going to be the same for every assignment, right? The first assignment might be chapter 1, the second one might be chapter 2, and so on. And so we can create those increments automatically using this auto increment tool here. So I'm going to do a 1-part auto increment, and the leading text will be chapter. And I'm going to start with chapter 2, since the one that I created for today was chapter 1. And I'm going to end with chapter 4, and I'll increment by 1. So if I go ahead and click on sample here, I can see 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go all the way to 5. And there we go, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, you can also do 2-part auto increments or 3-part auto increments. So, for example, if you wanted something to say like chapter 2, lesson 1, then chapter 2, lesson 2, then chapter 2, lesson 3, and then chapter 3, lesson 1, you could do that as well. And that's just by adding a second part to the auto increment. And you can even do a 3-part auto increment. I'm going to stick with the 1 part for now, and I'll go ahead and continue to preview. And now preview means exactly that. It's basically just a preview of what we are about to create. We haven't created it yet, but it allows me to quickly look and make sure everything looks the way that I want it to. So I have 4 items here, and I'll go ahead and select them, and then I will choose Accept Selected Items. So go ahead and click on that. And there we go. So now I have 4 more assignments that I created all at once. And if I click on them, just one at a time, you'll see this is chapter 2. And then if I go to this one, chapter 3, chapter 4, and chapter 5. So that's how you would create more than one assignment at a time. Now you can imagine workflow again, maybe Sunday night or Monday morning, going through and creating multiple assignments for your week, creating your ancient history lessons and then your math lessons and then your language arts lessons, whatever it might be. And just, using this add multiple tool to create them for the week. That is another workflow that a lot of folks do. They might do that, like I said, on a Sunday night, and then every night throughout the week going in and marking them complete and giving them grades, or maybe just doing it all at the end of the week on Friday, for example. So it's really up to you what might work best for you. And you can use these two techniques in conjunction with each other. So you could create multiple assignments for the courses that warrant that, and then single assignments for other things like that are only one-offs. So again, just the flexibility to be able to adapt Homeschool Tracker for your specific use. Okay, so now one thing I wanted to do is show you how to do this in the list view also. So let's jump over to that real quick. If I go to Agenda List View, now you'll notice right away that it's essentially the same information, right? It's the same agenda, but instead of a calendar view, it's in a list view, right? And so you'll see all of the assignments that we created. Here's that one for Monday, for ancient history one, and these are the four that we created for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And the nice thing here is like I can see all of this information in one screen, right? So before you had all of those individual lessons and I would have to click on them to see what they were. But here I can see, oh, there's the PLC info. Here's the possible and earned points, grades, if it was marked complete or not. All of that information is right here. Additionally, I see that attendance record is here as well. So the way that the list view is set up, all of those filters are here on the left in this green area. So date range, I can choose this week or next week or a custom range. I can choose which students I want to see, the types of information I want to see. So if I turned off attendance, that attendance record would go away. It doesn't mean I deleted it, it just means I'm not viewing it right now. Oops, turn the back on. I can filter based off of completion status, if it was marked complete or not. And then I can also drill down into specific subjects and courses if I like. Additionally, the columns here, I can choose which columns I want to display. So if I go to options and then choose columns, there's a number of different columns that I could turn on or off. Um, I have a lot of them turned on right now, but if that's overwhelming, you could certainly turn a lot of these off and change that. And then you can sort and group by columns as well. So if I wanted to sort, right now it's sorting by date by default, but if I wanted to reverse that sort, I could. And now it's sorting by date descending. I could also sort by more than one column at a time. And to clear any sort, you could just simply click on these until that little triangle goes away, like that. Now grouping is another cool thing you can do in the list view. So if I wanted to group by type, for example, I would just click and drag this column up to this area above it. And now I could group these together and kind of open and close these and work on different areas if I like. If you have multiple students, a lot of times folks like to group by student so that they could see all of Campbell's items and then all of another student's items and kind of open and close them as they like. To clear a grouping, just click on the X here and it goes away. Additionally, you can search here too. So if I wanted to search through all of my items, I could type in a search phrase and then it would filter out anything that didn't have that text in it. So really powerful tools here within the list view. And they really exist because in the calendar view, if you wanted to edit something, you'd have to just click on one, edit it, save it, go back, do it again. But in the list view, you can see multiple items at once and you can edit multiple items at once too. So let me show you how to do that. Let's say I want to edit these 4 assignments. I'll just select them and choose Action, Multi-Edit. I'm going to just change their start time to 10 a.m. to match the other ones, end at 11. And I'll click Save. And there you go. Now they're all 10 to 11. Now, if I was doing that in the calendar view, it would take a little bit longer. Here in the list view, I can do things like that much quicker. I can also mark all of these complete at the same time. Whoops. I'll do Action Multi-Edit again, and I'll give them all a grade right now too. So let's say she earned an 8 on each of these, and I'm going to mark them all complete, teacher complete. And I'll click Save. And there you go. So now if you scroll over here, you can see they all have an 80% grade and they were all marked teacher complete. Additionally, you now see a lot more attendance records because those were generated automatically. So that's really the basics of the list view. And again, it's a really powerful way if you need to make changes to more than one item at a time. You could certainly do that here. Or if you're looking for something and you have a lot of items in your calendar, it's much easier to find it right here in the list view. Okay, so let's recap here. We created single and multiple assignments. We added grades to those and we marked them complete. And we did that both from the calendar view and the list view. Okay, so now let's just dive into lesson plans. So before we look at them, I'm going to talk a little bit about what they are. Lesson plans are a sequence of items that have not yet been scheduled as assignments. And these are great if you want to plan everything out in detail all at once, or perhaps you have a predefined curriculum. Maybe you bought a curriculum off the shelf and it has a lesson plan in it, or you want to follow along with the way that they kind of have things organized. The nice thing about lesson plans is they're not tied to a particular student, and that means they can be reused over and over again. So, for example, you could create a lesson plan for freshman biology, and your student could go through it. And then when your younger student is old enough to take that course, you could use that same lesson plan again and create assignments for them using that lesson plan, and not have to can do a lot more work. The other nice thing is that they can be shared and imported using the shared lesson plan library. So the shared lesson plan library and Homeschool Tracker has literally hundreds, if not maybe over 1,000 now, lesson plans that have been created by other users, and most of them are based off of off-the-shelf curriculum. So if you are using curriculum like that, definitely check out the shared lesson plan library because somebody may have already created a lesson plan and shared it with everybody, saving you some time. Additionally, this is great if you are part of a group or a co-op and you're working together, and maybe one of you creates a lesson plan, then everybody can pull it down and start using it in their account as well. Okay, so we're going to do a little demo of lesson plans. What we'll do is we'll see an example lesson plan so you can get an idea of what it is and how it works. Then we'll create a simple lesson plan. We'll also import a lesson plan from the shared lesson plan library, and then we'll schedule those plans and we'll also discuss presets. Okay, so let's jump back over here. First, I'm going to go over to the lesson plan screen from the schedules and planning section of the menu. And if it's your first time here, you'll see a message like this, which basically kind of outlines what we just talked about. Now, if you don't have a lesson plan yet, there won't be much to see here. I happen to have a few here in my account, so I'm going to go ahead and choose my lesson plan. I'm going to hit the space bar to bring up my list. And I'll choose this Abeka arithmetic plan. Okay, now first things first, you probably noticed that this screen looks a lot like the agenda list view. And that's because we use basically the same paradigm here in the lesson plan screen as in the list view. You have your filters here on the left, you have columns that you can sort and group by, and then you have your individual items here. And now, so these individual lesson plan items, they look a lot like assignments, except they're missing a few things. So if I open this up, you'll see that this looks a lot like an assignment, but it's actually a lesson plan item. And now remember, the difference between lesson plan items and assignments are that lesson plan items are not tied to a specific student or a date. So you'll already notice here that there's no date and there's no student, because remember, the lesson plan is just a sequence of items. You can think of it almost as like a template, or a plan really, that you can then schedule and then create assignments out of it. So this is basically like a placeholder of items that once we're ready to use this plan, we can go ahead and schedule these items for our student, and it will create assignments based off of this plan. So if I take a look at how this plan is organized, you can see that day one, we do lesson one. Day two, we do lesson two. Day three, lesson three, and so on. You get to day 12, and we do an oral test that's worth 100 points. And then also on day 12, another test that's also worth 100 points. And then that continues again, more lessons, another test, more lessons, another test. And if I scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see that on day 171, we're doing lesson 171. So this is an entire year's worth of lessons, and you can see that it's 202 items, 171 days. And so somebody created this, and took the time to input it all. But the nice thing now is if you are doing this Abeka arithmetic first grade curriculum, you have everything ready for you. So all you have to do is essentially schedule it for your students, and it'll create those assignments. And then you can kind of follow along, or um, have it follow you, however you want to do it. So that's really what a lesson plan is. It's essentially, it's a sequence of items. It doesn't have to be 171 days. That's an entire year. It could be much shorter than that. But it's a sequence of items that you can create ahead of time and then use whenever you like, or pull from whenever you like. So we'll talk about this a little bit later. But when it comes to scheduling these items, I typically recommend that you only schedule one week or even maybe 2 weeks at a time, and that just really gives you the flexibility to essentially just pull from this lesson plan as you go. Think of it as almost like a hopper a hopper of lessons that, when it's time, oh, hey, it's time to do arithmetic. Let's go pull the next lesson out of the lesson plan and assign it for my student for the next day or for the next week. It can be really tempting to just take this entire lesson plan and schedule it for your whole year, all 171 days. But then you kind of lose the flexibility that we talk about so much in that, now you're kind of locked into this schedule. And if you do want to change, then you have to reschedule a bunch of things. So I always recommend that you just schedule a few days or a week or two at a time, because it really just allows you to maintain that flexibility. Okay, so that's what a sample plan looks like. Let's go ahead and create one of these lesson plans so we can get an idea of how it works. I'm just going to go ahead and click on Add Multiple. And first things first, this looks a lot like that Add Multiple assignment wizard. And it basically is, it's just slightly different. Um, because we came from that Abeka arithmetic plan, it's assuming that I want to create more items for that plan, but I'm going to go ahead and create a new plan. So I'm just going to call this reading one. And actually, no, sorry. I'm going to call this a sample plan. And let's go pick a subject course for it, Ancient History 1. And we'll make these lessons. We'll pick a resource again. And we'll make these worth 10 points. And now we'll continue to day numbers. Day numbers are basically the day on which we want that particular lesson to occur. So I'm going to start on day 1 and we'll just increment by 1. So basically we're saying we want 1 lesson per day, and we'll continue to PLC. So this works just like before. I'm going to do a 1-part auto increment. I'll do lesson, starts with 1 and ends with 10. So now I'll continue to preview. And here we go. So I have 10 lessons now on 10 separate days, and it goes lesson 1 through lesson 10. So I'll go ahead and select all of these and then choose accept selected items. And because we're looking at the arithmetic plan, it's still there. So I need to load up my sample plan now. Just choose sample plan, click OK. So there we go. So here's my sample lesson plan that we just created. It's 10 days, 10 lessons, and it's ready to go. Now let's say I wanted to add a quiz to the end of this. Let's just go ahead and choose add single. And again, this is Ancient History 1. I'm going to call it a quiz. And the quiz will be worth, let's make it worth 100 points. And we'll save that. And there it goes. It's up here at the top because I didn't give it a day number, so it defaulted to 0. So if I want that on day 11, for example, let's just go ahead and edit that. And I'll change it to day 11 and then choose save. So there we go. So now we've got our 10 lessons. And then on the 11th day, we do a quiz. Now you could keep continuing this pattern just like you saw in the Abeka plan. But there's also other ways to create this in a really efficient way. And I would highly recommend, if you are really interested in lesson plans, to check out that lesson planning webinar that we did, that training session that we did a few months ago, as we go over a lot of those more advanced techniques for creating these lesson plans in a really efficient way. So, I mean, I just created this 11-day plan in a few seconds here. So it wouldn't take that much longer to create more items, but there's actually a few cool shortcuts that you'll find in that training session that allow you to create, 180-day plans in just a few seconds. So definitely check that out if you're interested. Cool. So that is our sample lesson, or our sample lesson plan that we just created. So now let's just jump back here to see where we're at. Okay, we're going to go ahead and import a lesson plan from the library. So again, from the main menu, I'm going to go to Shared Lesson Plans. And now the Shared Lesson Plan library, if I just enter in a blank search here and click Go, I'll see a list of all of the lesson plans in here. So here's a bunch of Abeka lesson plans, all about spelling. Again, there's literally hundreds of these, and users will put in not only a title, but then kind of a description of what it is. And so definitely, feel free to check this out if you are using off-the-shelf curriculum, or if you're working with a group or a co-op. Definitely use the Shared Lesson Plan library. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and search in here to kind of narrow it down and search for reading. And I'm going to scroll down and choose this Usborne first reading level one plan. And here it is. So it's a 15-day lesson plan, and somebody has taken the time to go ahead and create this. So I'm going to go ahead and import it. I'm going to click Prepare for Import. And now I need to give it a new name. So the name I give it is the name it's going to have when I import it into my account. So I'm going to call it Reading One. And let me just take a look at this. This is a preview here. And so I'm going to go ahead and select all the items. But one thing I did notice is that for subject course, it just has language arts. So that means it would be just the language arts subject, which is fine. And I could change that after I import it, but I could also change it right now. So I'm going to choose Action, Multi-Edit. I'm going to change the subject course to Language Arts Reading 1. And that's that Reading 1 course that we created earlier. And now I'll choose Save. And there you go. I just edited that before I imported it to be Language Arts Reading 1. And if I look here, you'll also notice this asterisk and the words new here for these items. And that just means that those items don't exist in my current Homeschool Tracker account. And so what it'll do is when it imports it, it'll actually create those items. So all of these resources, these are books, it'll add those to my library. This activity, Child Read Aloud, will be added to my activities list, so I don't have to do it myself. Okay, so with all of them selected, I'm going to choose Accept Selected Items. And there we go. I'm back in my account, and this is my Reading One plan, and it's ready to go. So let's go ahead and schedule this plan. Let's say we want to go ahead and use it, just like I had mentioned earlier. I'm going to go ahead and choose the items that I want to schedule. So I'm going to choose five items. So I'm going to schedule 1 week's worth because I want to do it every day. So I'll select those 5, and then I'll just choose Action, Scheduler. And this is for Campbell. And so I'm going to go ahead and continue to day and date. And I want this to start, let's say today. We're going to do it for this week. And I want it to happen every day. So I can choose my different settings here. I can choose daily. I can choose weekly. So maybe like every week, only on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or monthly, however you want to do it. But I want it to just happen every day. So I'm going to do every one day. And I'm going to have it happen from 11 a.m. to 12, starting on the 1st. And I'll continue until all the selected items are used. So I'll go ahead and continue to preview. And so now I have days 1 through 5 will now be scheduled Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 11 to 12. And then these are all the details. So I can go ahead and select them and choose Accept Selected Items. So now if I jump over to the agenda, there you go. Campbell Reading 1, Child Read Aloud. If I go ahead and click on these, you'll see that it changes. So this is the first one, second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one. So that's how you can use a lesson plan, which again is basically a sequence of items that have already been created, and I can schedule them for my whole week. So remember that, let me just pull it up. Remember this chart here and how we said assignments could come from a couple different places. We could create them individually or in a series, or they could come from lesson plans. Well, here we're looking at the agenda. These are both assignments. This assignment we created individually, right? We just created one of them. These 4 assignments here we created using the Add Multiple Assignments tool. And then these 5 assignments, these Reading One assignments, we created using a lesson plan. So again, just to illustrate that, assignments can come from those different places. And how you do that, it's totally up to you. So you don't necessarily have to use lesson plans, but you can see the value in them by how I just did that, where essentially I had a lesson plan, a template, or a sequence of items, and I was able to quickly just schedule them for the entire week. So, totally up to you in how you want to handle it in your homeschool and what workflow works best for you. So that's how you would schedule a lesson plan. If you had lesson plans for each of your courses, you could go in Sunday night or Monday morning, load up each one, select the items you want, schedule them for your week, and be good to go. That's a workflow that a lot of folks use. There's another way I want to show you how you can schedule lesson plans in even a more powerful way. It's kind of like what I call lesson plan scheduling 2.0, I guess. So if you jump over to the menu and then go to lesson plans and presets, let's go ahead and click on that. And this will take just a second to load because essentially what it's doing is it's pulling up Campbell and all of the lesson plans that are associated with her. So she currently has these 6 lesson plans that she's using. But I can go ahead and click edit here, and I'll add that reading one lesson plan as well. So go ahead and select that. And then I'm going to jump over to preset. And what a preset is, first of all, it looks a lot like a calendar, right? What a preset is it's basically a preset time on the calendar when I want a specific subject course to occur for a student. So this is Campbell, and I have these preset blocks of time for different courses. So from 9 to 10, she does Ancient History 1. From 10 to 11, she does Spelling. From 11 to 12, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, she does Arithmetic. And on Tuesday, Thursday, she does Grammar, and so on and so forth. Now, by creating a preset, what I can then do is when I use the scheduler, I can tell it to use the preset to schedule the items instead of me saying start on this day or do it from this time to that time only on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I can set this preset up ahead of time and then run the scheduler so that the scheduler basically takes the next lesson plan item, finds what preset it matches up with, and then schedules it for that specific time. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new preset. So I'm going to do one for reading 1, and we're going to have it start at 3 p.m. and end at 4 p.m. And we'll do that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and save. So there we go. I have my new reading 1 preset from 3 to 4. Now, if I go to the scheduler, this is the really powerful scheduler 2.0 scheduler that I like to call. I can select all of the lesson plans that I want to schedule at once. So I'm going to choose all of these. I'm going to schedule them all with just a few clicks here. So now I will continue to day and date. And from here, I'm going to choose this option here that says preset. You could choose the daily, weekly, monthly. I'm going to choose preset. So it's going to, when it's choosing what day and what time to use, it's going to look at the presets that we set up. And for start date, I'm going to choose next Monday. And I'm going to schedule until the 12th. So I'm just going to schedule next week, February 8th through February 12th. Now I'll continue to preview. Okay, so there we go. I just took those, I think it was 7 lesson plans, and I scheduled all 7 for all of next week in just a few seconds there. And you'll see here, this is 47 items. So we're just previewing it, but basically, here's Ancient History 1 on Monday from 9 to 10, then Spelling from 10 to 11, and then here's that Reading 1 assignment from 3 to 4 on Monday, and again 3 to 4 on Tuesday. So let's go ahead and select all of these and then choose Accept Selected Items. And again, this will just take a second because what it's doing is it's taking those 47 items and it's creating assignments for those on my agenda. Okay, so now let's go to the agenda calendar view. And this was this week, and let's look at next week. And there you go. So now Campbell has an entire week already scheduled at the preset times that we had already set up for each one of those courses. And using the lesson plans, it pulled the next available lesson and scheduled it at that preset time. So you can see the power of combining lesson plans with presets and that more advanced scheduler, right? And this workflow is definitely probably more advanced, and it requires you to kind of plan ahead of time and create all your lesson plans. But as you can see, with just a few clicks and in just a few seconds, you can very easily generate an entire week's worth of assignments for your student, or for multiple students, right? So that's the other nice thing is you could have done this for 10 students, and it'd be ready to go. So again, thinking about workflow, a lot of folks I know do this. Every Sunday night they go in, they take their lesson plans, schedule them for the whole week, and then maybe they print out their daily task list, which I'll show you here in a second. And at the end of the week, they may go back in and mark those complete, give them grades, and be ready to go for next week. So again, just another way that you can use Homeschool Tracker to be more successful in your homeschool. Okay, so let's see where we're at now. So just as a recap, we saw an example lesson plan, that Abeka arithmetic plan. We created a simple one. We imported a plan from the shared lesson plan library, and we scheduled it in kind of the simple way, right, where we just selected a few items, hit schedule, scheduled 1 week at a time, good to go. But then we also talked about presets and using the advanced scheduler to schedule not just one, but multiple lesson plans for an entire week at once. And again, just want to stress that it's really advisable just to schedule a week, maybe 2 weeks at a time. There's really no need to schedule entire year's worth of items all at once. You saw right there that we scheduled just 1 week and it was 47 assignments. If I had scheduled an entire year of all those lesson plans, it'd be literally thousands of assignments, which Homeschool Tracker will certainly do, but now you have thousands of assignments on your agenda, and if you need to take a day off or something like that, you'd have to shuffle all of those, which you can also do, but it's just more hassle than it's worth, right? Maintaining that flexibility and using lesson plans as more of a hopper, kind of pulling the next available lesson plan or lesson out of it, tends to just allow you more flexibility and keep you more nimble. So definitely, I highly recommend just scheduling a week or two at a time. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about reports. Like I said earlier, reports can be created as PDFs that you can save, print, or send to people. And the daily task list, this is the report to use for kind of the day-to-day use, where you can see all the assignments and chores and appointments that you or your student might have on a particular day. Transcripts and reports cards, those can be generated as long as you have at least one completed and graded assignment in a course. So remember that teacher complete button is the key to everything. Once you hit that button or check that box and save, now that assignment is essentially recorded, and can be applied towards a grade, which can then generate a report card or transcript. So let's take a quick look at the reports real quick. Right here again in the middle section here. I'm going to talk tonight just about the daily task list. We'll probably spend some time in a future webinar talking about report cards and transcripts, but for most people, the daily task list is kind of the go-to report. And to generate that, first of all, you can choose a date range. So let's go ahead and create the task list for that week that we just scheduled. So February 8th through the 12th. And then I can choose all the different options that I might want. I'm just going to keep these kind of default options here, and I'll click generate. And now I can pick up the report. And what it just did is it downloaded that PDF file to my downloads folder. So I can open that. I'll zoom in here for you. And so here it is. Basically, the daily task list is a direct list of all of those same assignments that we had just scheduled for Campbell. So, you've got your ancient history from 9 to 10, and there's that reading 1 from 3 to 4. And since we did this for the entire week, it continues through Tuesday and then all the way, to Friday. So this is 4 pages, but it contains all 47 of those assignments that we scheduled. In this box here on the right, you can use that. If, let's say, for example, if you printed this out and put it on a clipboard or something, you could just check that box as a way to kind of keep track of things, and then maybe go back into Homeschool Tracker and then mark those complete as you go. So that's the daily task list. It's definitely one of those things that folks that do like to print things, you can certainly print this out, put it on a bulletin board or on a clipboard, but that way you and your student both know what needs to get done on a particular day. Okay, so workflows. So we talked about this a lot throughout the training session already, but Some popular workflows would be to create and complete single assignments on a daily basis, like we mentioned. Um, Totally doable, and a lot of people have been using Homeschool Tracker for many years, and they still, are just creating single assignments every day, or multiple assignments for the week. Lesson plans, while really popular, are definitely more advanced, right? And so if you don't think that you need to use lesson plans, I wouldn't necessarily start there, right? I would say if you're just getting started, just try creating single assignments every day, or maybe even just logging your work using assignments like we talked about. um, and as you become more familiar with how the data entry works and that sort of thing, and you get more comfortable, then you can start using lesson plans then to help save yourself some time. But kind of jumping straight into lesson plans can certainly be overwhelming, right? Because you need to kind of fully grasp everything that you're doing in a homeschool tracker to make sure that you're creating the plan, maybe the presets, the scheduling, all of that in a cohesive manner so that it's the best that it can be. And if you don't know that up front, you could maybe spend more time than it's worth trying to get it sorted out. So while lesson plans are really popular, it's definitely more of an advanced feature. But as you saw, can be very powerful. So workflows, a lot of folks create lesson plans and then schedule their students one week or 2 weeks at a time, and that allows you to save a lot of time in Homeschool Tracker and kind of keep you moving forward. All right, Q&A. So we have time for questions. It's about 9 o'clock. So, we went for about an hour there, and I'm more than happy to stay on to answer any questions you may have. So feel free to submit those using that Q&A button there in your viewer, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. We did have a few questions that came in ahead of time. I'm just going to pull those up here and take a look. Um, let's see. So Lauren asked, what is the best practice for entering items that were weekly planner items in the HST Plus program? So for those of you that don't know, we used to have a downloadable program called Homeschool Tracker Plus that had a feature called the Weekly Planner. And so Lauren is asking the best way to kind of do something similar to that in Homeschool Tracker Online. Now, so Lauren, I think you are online. I think, yeah, I see you online here. So you may have noticed the presets kind of take part of the weekly planner from Homeschool Tracker Plus. But also the other thing about the weekly planner is was your ability to essentially create templates, right? So what a lot of folks do is they may create a lesson plan in Homeschool Tracker Online that has essentially like the shell of the assignment that they want to schedule on a regular basis. And then you may also create a corresponding preset that goes along with it. And then every week you could kind of do that practice that we just did where you would load up that lesson plan, schedule it for that week, and then you could go in to those assignments after they're scheduled and add in any specific details like PLC information or a different resource or whatever it might be. So for those of you listening, um, okay, so Lauren, you just respond. Okay, that's what I'll do. Thank you. Makes sense. Okay, great. Glad that was helpful. For those of you listening, though, that maybe you weren't following that, basically the idea here is that you could create a lesson plan. And so this lesson plan is very specific, right? So this reading one has like the PLC already written in, it's got a resource, but let's say you created a lesson plan for Campbell and it was just like 5 days, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's say I was reading one, but you knew that you eat on Mondays, you were going to have a lesson. On Tuesdays, you were going to have, reading, on Wednesdays, it was going to be a quiz. You could kind of create that sort of framework in a lesson plan and not necessarily put in all the very specific details. And then you could just schedule that every week or, whenever you wanted to use it, and then go into your agenda and kind of put in the specific details either as you went or after the fact. And that allows you to essentially kind of use lesson plans as a way to create templates for things that you might use on a regular basis. So again, Homeschool Tracker is a really open program, right? There's no one way to use it. There's no right way, wrong way. So I kind of like it because it allows you to be creative, allows you to use these tools in different ways, and it's always interesting to see what folks are doing with with the different tools that are within Homeschool Tracker. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions that may have come in. Danielle's asking one right now. Is there a way to identify which assignments were entered by a lesson plan and which were created manually? Um, there is not a way to do that, no. And I'll tell you why. So essentially what happens when you create an assignment from a lesson plan, the assignment is completely independent of the lesson plan. So basically what it's doing is it's using the lesson plan again like a template. And when you run it through the scheduler, it creates assignments and they're no longer linked to that lesson plan. So if you were to then, so I'll just show you real quick. If I go to the agenda, so remember all of these assignments, these were created from a lesson plan. If I go in here and change things in here, if I change, change this to chapter 26 and save it, that had no impact on the lesson plan whatsoever, right? Because this assignment is totally independent of it. And so there's really no way to know that this came from the lesson plan unless you put something in there to make it known, right? And that's certainly a creative way to do that if you needed to do that. So for example, you know, you could use this custom field as a way to identify things that came from a lesson plan for whatever reason, right? So in your lesson plan, you could create your lesson plan items to have the custom field say lesson plan, whatever, right? And that way, when you did see the assignments, you knew that that's where they came from. Now, this does bring up another thing in when you are using lesson plans, there's a thing that we track called the used status. So, how I keep saying how lesson plans are kind of like a hopper, where when you run the scheduler, it's basically pulling the next available lesson plan item from that lesson plan. Well, we're keeping track of which ones you've used and which ones are unused for a particular student. And that's how we do that, right? So that if I'm going to schedule these lesson plans again for the following week, it's not going to schedule the same one. It's going to schedule the next available one. Let me just show you how that works real quick. So from the lesson plan screen, under displaying in the filters, right now I'm displaying all items, but I can also show used by student. So if I click on that and I'll choose Campbell, I can show the status of both used or not used. So I'll show both just so you see what that looks like. And now if you look here on the right, there's a new column here called used and used date. And so this is probably the only way where you can kind of do a little bit of investigative work to kind of link back up a lesson plan item with an assignment if you really wanted to. But what this does is basically when you run the scheduler and the scheduler creates an assignment for a student based off of your lesson plan, it puts this little flag on that lesson plan item that says, okay, I used this lesson plan item and we scheduled it for this date for the student Campbell. Um, and so now the next time you run the scheduler, it's going to just find the next available unused item. So the next time we run the scheduler, it's going to pick this one because it's already used all of these, and it's going to do that same practice. And so that's how we keep track of which lesson plan items are used and unused. Now there are situations where you may want to change this used status. So for example, if you went to your agenda and you deleted all of those assignments that we already scheduled, and now you want to schedule them again, well, if you run the scheduler again, it's going to start with this one. It's not going to start with the first one. So there are times when you need to change this use status. And you can do that, if you select the items that you want, and just choose action, set used status, and then you can change it to used or not used. So I can change these to not used and hit save. And now that use status is reset for Campbell. So if I run this scheduler again, if I run the scheduler again for this lesson plan, it's going to pick up from this one. So hopefully that's clear. Let's see. Okay, Danielle is asking, how do I archive books so they don't show up? Got duplicate books after importing lesson plan. Okay, great question. So if you go to your library you'll notice that right here where it says active, there's a yes. If I double click on this, I can choose active and say no, and then click save. And so now this is no for that particular book. And that means it won't show up in all of those lists. And that's really kind of the power behind this manage lists section here, right? So remember how I said at the beginning that the manage lists area is really a maintenance area? Well, this is the kind of maintenance that I'm talking about, right? So this list of items in my library, if I wanted to maintain that list or change it in any way, I can do that from right in here. So now by making this inactive, it's essentially quote unquote archived. And so if I now, and I'll just show you, might as well go through the whole thing. So just to, before we do this, this is A plus TutorSoft Math 6 program. Okay. So if I go and try to create an assignment now, and we look up resources, you'll see that the A plus TutorSoft Math 6 workbook is here, but the program is not because it's hidden now, it's archived. So just to show you that that's what the connection is between this active and inactive field here. So hopefully that is helpful. Change that back. Okay, it looks like there's a follow-up from Danielle. When I try to delete a resource, if it says it's being used, is there a way to find out where, which lesson? There is not a direct way to find out, but it's usually not that difficult if you use the search. So she's saying when she's trying to delete a resource, so let's just pick one here that I know happens to be in use. So like this arithmetic one, I'm sure is in use. I'll just choose action delete, and it says that the selected item is in use and cannot be deleted. So I have to archive it or find out where it's being used. So one solution is just to archive it, right? You can just turn it off and then it's basically hidden. Um, and that's probably the easiest solution, right? Deleting it is a little bit trickier because basically what's happening is this resource here is linked to from who knows how many assignments, right? Or how many lesson plan items. Because over the course of your homeschool career, right, you could be using this book or this resource many, many times, and it could essentially be assigned as a resource maybe hundreds or thousands of times, right? And so to go through all of those assignments and either delete those assignments or to change the resource associated with them, while certainly possible, might be more of a headache than maybe it's worth. So you could just archive it by making it inactive. If you are absolutely set on deleting it, then I would first start by going to your assignments. So the list view is probably the best place for this. And setting the date range to something huge, right? So like if you've been homeschooling or using Homeschool Tracker for a long, long time, I would set it to custom and then just make this, like three years wide, right? So that you view everything. And then I would use the search here and type in the name of that resource. I forgot which one well, I'll just use what I see here. So rabbit's tail, for example. And so now I can see that there's just one assignment here that has the rabbit's tail. So I could either delete this assignment or I could just remove this resource from it if I wanted to. The next place I would look for a resource being referenced would be a lesson plan item. So this one might be a little bit trickier because you can only view one lesson plan at a time, but you would essentially need to load up the lesson plans, at least that you think it might be referenced in, find it, delete that item, or remove the resource from that item. And then after doing all of that, you would probably be able to then delete it from the library. But again, that's probably more only happening if perhaps you made a mistake or you had a duplicate resource or something like that. If you're just kind of going through your regular homeschooling, then it's less likely that you're going to need to delete something and probably more likely that you can just archive it. Danielle says that she just wanted to delete duplicate resources. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Oh, one thing, Danielle, that may help you with that is if you have duplicate resources, meaning they're literally the same name in here, just change one of the names to something identifiable, right? So So, like for example, these two here, this one's program and the other one's workbook. Let's say these were duplicates and they were both program. You might name this one program dash delete or something, and then go look through your assignments in your library or whatever and find anything that has the dash delete in it, and then you know that that's like the one that you want to change, and then change that to the other the other resource that you have, and then you can go in and delete the the one that you identified here. Hopefully that makes sense, but that's a quick way to kind of identify it, because again, like, right, if it has the exact same name, it's going to be almost impossible to figure out which one's which. So just change the name, and then it's much easier to find. Okay, cool. Let's see. So Lauren asked a question back here. Let's see. Is there a way to clear or reset the smart fields of what they remember? I accidentally put in wrong information under the activity field, and now those items pop up each time. I put actual assignments there instead of in class or quiz. I corrected the mistakes, but the smart field is still bringing them up each time. So again, remember the smart entry field is referencing what is in these lists here. So if you did that in the activity field, you're going to want to take a look at the activities list right here. Um, and if you find in here anything that you don't want, you can delete it or archive it like we did with the library items. So definitely start there, Lauren. That's likely where you'll be able to edit that. Okay, let's see. If there are any other questions coming in? Elizabeth had asked a question before the webinar. Can I create a one-page checklist for my child's whole week, like a weekly calendar, but with all the details? So again, that's the daily task list. Um, we don't have a way to like limit it to just one page. It's really just going to stretch based off of the number of items that you have. Um, there is a feature request in that we're trying to work on now where we can put in a page break. Um, to break up each day. So for example, if you had, well, let me just show you. Um, uh, sorry, let me just create that daily task list again, because this will make more sense. So for example, you'll see here, I have Monday and then Tuesday starts on the same page. It's really, we're just doing that to try to save paper. But some users have asked for the ability to do a page break here so that Monday would be here and then Tuesday would start on a new page and then Wednesday on another new page. So that's something that we're working on. Hope to have that released soon. But otherwise, obviously, if it's too long, we're not going to squeeze it to fit one page, just because I think visually it's going to be hard for us to do that. But the daily task list is definitely probably the answer for you for that question. Okay, so any other questions, feel free to submit them. Otherwise, I think we're all set. So um, again, thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. I know, again, that there's many other things you could be doing on a Monday night. You could be watching the election results in Iowa. You could be sleeping. You could be doing a lot of things, but we greatly appreciate you jumping on here and spending some time with us. Again, if you have any questions at all, email us, support@homeschooltracker.com. My wife, Amy, is awesome at responding to emails and checking that all the time. So we're more than happy to help you. Especially if you're just starting out, if you have workflow questions like we talked about, or if you had duplicate resources like Danielle was talking about earlier, and you can't figure out how to get those cleared up, we can even log into your account for you and kind of clean things up for you, that sort of thing. So don't hesitate to email us. And again, we will be sending out a recording of this as well as a survey, and love to get your feedback. So again, thank you guys so much. If you have any questions, feel free to email us, and we hope to see you again soon. Thanks.